And there it is. After Michigan takes off from Ann Arbor, heads to State College, Pennsylvania, likely right around the time the Michigan football plane is landing in State College for tomorrow's game, the Big Ten is handing down a suspension of Jim Harbaugh for the rest of the regular season. Now, the second this news hit, we started filming, so it may have come out whether or not that includes a Big Ten championship. I think it does not, which would kind of be counterintuitive. Kind of seems like to me that it's a weird way of wording a 3-game suspension, which of course would include tomorrow versus Penn State, Maryland a week from now, and then in 15 days against Ohio State. So Jim Harbaugh suspended. The wording of it coming down from that scumbag Pete Thamel that the Big Ten will prohibit Jim Harbaugh from being on the sidelines during games, which is a really twisted way of saying suspended. Okay, cool. But he'd be allowed to coach during the week. So just a game day only suspension. Suspension does not include the bowl games. The way it's been worded is a regular season suspension. I think it's up for debate whether the Big Ten believes that the Big Ten championship game is regular season, which they could easily say that it's their regular season, their championship, or it's a postseason game, which they, in theory, don't really have any authority over, as they are handing down the suspension right now and not the NCAA. So Jim Harbaugh suspended. And what took it so long, right? This didn't drop until just before 4 o'clock Eastern. This is literally, with producer Brad here in studio, this is the Friday news dump of all Friday news dumps. The man has already landed in Pennsylvania State College. This is like the president is resigning or something. That's how big of a story this is in the world of sports. Dumping it 4 o'clock on a Friday, spineless of the Big Ten, if you ask me. So give me your one-word reaction, or hell, you can go more than one, but start with one and then give me your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh being suspended by the Big Ten for the next 3 games, including the Ohio State game, potentially even Big Ten championship game. Comment below. Light up the comments. Let me know how you guys are feeling. I think just distasteful, maybe shameful, cowardly, spineless. Those are 4 words, but I'm going to include them all as one word to my reaction to Jim Harbaugh being suspended. But we've been speculating this for weeks now, that the Big Ten is going to come down. Monday, the Big Ten notified Michigan of what their allegations are, gave Michigan 48 hours to respond. Michigan put back a 10-page letter from Ward Manuel on Wednesday, and then Harbaugh's own lawyer, Tom Mars, who apparently copied some of that from a message board post, his letter to the Big Ten as well, 8-page letter. That comes back on Wednesday. Big Ten, we thought it was going to happen yesterday. All the insiders, all the national media who have sourced the Big Ten, coming down Thursday. Didn't come down on Thursday. And then there were rumors this morning that are unconfirmed on my part, but just kind of collecting, for those of you who've been at work all day, what's been out there, that hey, the Big Ten, as of last night, early this morning, they were reconsidering. Maybe they would give Harbaugh a suspension, but then also put that suspension on pause. 3-game suspension, but we're going to put it on pause until the NCAA investigation is over. In theory, a suspension for 3 games for next year, but Tony Petitti could potentially, play nice guy with the schools that have really complained about Jim Harbaugh being suspended. Other thing that's been out there today is that, Michigan has been holding in their back pocket evidence that they have done on their own over the last 3 or 4 weeks of 8 or 9 other Big Ten teams that have sent people on the payroll out to other games to scout future opponents. I don't know the veracity of that. That being reported this morning from 97.1 Radio in Detroit. Tom Van Haren from ESPN. We're ready for this tweet. He comes out and says, Big Ten has found Michigan's in violation of the league sportsmanship policy. Jim Harbaugh not allowed to coach in game for the rest of the regular season, effective immediately. So doesn't really expand on the Big Ten championship game question that we had as we saw these tweets coming in and filming. Other rumors out there today that Michigan was approached last night, early this morning, Santa Ono, Ward Manuel, with a major fine up to hundreds of thousands of dollars for the university, even Jim Harbaugh out of his personal checkbook, and a 1-game suspension that will be announced on Sunday after the Penn State game. Because how fair is it to the players that they're landing in Pennsylvania, they're pulling out their phones right now, and as they're busing to their hotel to play Penn State tomorrow in, 20 hours from now, that their coach has now been suspended, and it'll only be left up to the courts whether or not he will actually be on the sideline in this game tomorrow. Speaking of the courts, all right, see you in court. To the Big Ten is what the University of Michigan has basically put out there to anyone who has had any inside sources, anybody's reported on this, saying Michigan plans to fight this as aggressively as they can to keep Jim Harbaugh on the field during what I think most Michigan football fans, especially you've been watching for 30 plus years like I have, or hell, if you're going back 50 years like people of my parents' generation, is that this is the best team we've seen, and J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback that Michigan has, and everything is in front of them. Top 10 matchup tomorrow, top 2 or 3 matchup potentially with Ohio State in a couple weeks. Big Ten championship game, college football playoff, where Michigan is, as of right now, the favorite to win the national championship. So let's take a look at what's going to happen next. All right, Michigan, as we are speaking, I expect them to be calling up whatever judge they've got to pay a $3,000 court fee to get to leave his porch on a Friday afternoon when it is a federal holiday to let him in, hear the case really quick, maybe in his office, maybe he comes out of the courthouse, get a temporary injunction that would allow Jim Harbaugh, temporary restraining order, I should say, to allow Jim Harbaugh to be on the field tomorrow. After that, after 14 days, which would basically be the day before the Ohio State game, they could go back and say, hey, look, this has not been resolved. This can't be resolved with money in the future, meaning that if Jim Harbaugh doesn't coach against Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, it's not like the Big Ten can pay us $10 million in the future and make everything okay. It can't be resolved monetarily. So give us another 14 days, okay? Another 14 days goes by, then they got to go to a different court, get a an injunction, which is then ruled indefinitely until either the case ultimately goes to court as part of a lawsuit where Michigan would sue the Big Ten, et cetera, et cetera. Whoever wins, right? Either the Big Ten has to pay Michigan money, whatever, or Harbaugh, serves a suspension later on, or they mediate or come to an agreement outside of the court that they sign off on and get this taken away. Maybe it's a one-game suspension to start 2024 or something like that. That's what's going to happen. I think the only question right now is this happening ASAP? Because it's 4 o'clock here on a Friday afternoon, East Coast time, and Michigan's already in Happy Valley, which just shows how spineless this is for the Big Ten. And does the judge or group of judges, however it works, I'm not a legal expert in this matter, are they going to see fit to do this and let Jim Harbaugh coach and overrule the Big Ten because of the Big Ten's, in theory, contractual obligation to allow a football coach to coach and them overstepping their boundaries? All right, more on this story coming up here, but I did want to ask you guys this. Light up the comments with free Harbaugh. Let's see. So can we get one person to comment free Harbaugh 25 times? 50 times? How many games has Harbaugh won at Michigan? I think it's like 80 or 81, 79, something like that. 80 times. Who type free Harbaugh in the comments? 80 separate comments. You will be an ultimate MFer, an ultimate Michigan football report audience elite member. So light up the comments. Free Harbaugh. I wish I would have bought that J.J. McCarthy shirt at the beginning of the year. Number 4, free Harbaugh, but I didn't. I think a few of our audience members did get one from our early watch parties, though. Schedule going forward. The 3-game suspension, assuming it is not the Big Ten championship as well. Penn State, 20 hours away. Maryland, a week from now, which is yet to be decided on what time that game will be, whether it's going to be either a 12 o'clock game or a 3:30 game. The noon will be another big noon, which would be 3 weeks in a row for Michigan this week, next week, and then, of course, Ohio State, or at 3:30 on FS1. And then it is noon Eastern from the Big House, 15 days from now, Michigan, Ohio State. That's what Jim Harbaugh is suspended for, and that's what he won't coach unless something happens in the court system in the next 19 or so hours before he has to take the field in pregame warm-ups tomorrow from Michigan, Penn State. Wolverines favored by 4 points going into this game. It's really dropped about a couple points since the initial lines came out last Saturday night, early Sunday. A lot of early money came in on Penn State, but over the last 24 hours, the big bettors, the amount of money, right? The bets are still fairly 50-50, maybe 55-45 as percentage, but the money has eked up there to like 65-75%. That 15% or so difference means that people are betting on Michigan, and when they bet Michigan, they're betting a lot more money than the people who are putting money on Penn State. We are, folks, the Michigan Football Report is presented by Prize Picks. I've been loving Prize Picks all season long. College football, NFL, it is so simple, so easy to use, and it's the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. Pick more or less on player stats to win up to 25 times your money. This week on Prize Picks, I am selecting. I got a little Michigan Penn State flair on my Prize Picks this week. I've got Blake Corum, all right? They said, Blake Corum, 75.5 rushing yards. I'm going more on that one. Drew Aller, 193.5 pass yards. Going less. No way he's doing that on Michigan's defense unless he gets some cheap passing yards at the end. And how about the Donovan Edwards, 16.5 receiving yards. I got to go more on that for my guy, the Don. I am confident I'm putting all my chips on the table with Prize Picks on a Michigan victory. And of course, Michigan's running backs to have statistical days, and then the defense to hold Drew Aller to less than 193.5 yards. Now, I put $5 in this, but I've been thinking about it the last hour or so. I'm like, I'm going to put like 25, 50, 100. We'll put that 5 in, win 5 times my money by just getting those 3 predictions right. And Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy. So if any of those players get injured in the first half and don't return to the game in the second half, they're just kind of removed from the pick altogether, and the other 2 players live on, and the odds adjust as such. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy platform to offer an injury insurance policy. It's really simple to play. I make my picks in under 60 seconds every time. Get a $100 deposit match with Prize Picks when you use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS. That's a $100 up to $100 deposit match. Use code CLNS. Click on that link. Go get Prize Picks and use promo code CLNS when making your first deposit. Keep it rolling here with the suspension news on Jim Harbaugh. Look, I think that the way this has come down, Michigan has had 9 games that they have absolutely dominated their opponents, and in an absolutely absurd way. If you look at some of the numbers, Michigan's the first team in the AP poll era since 1936 to do this stat. It's the first Big Ten team since whatever year, 1971, to do that stat. One of 3 teams in the Big Ten to start a season, 9 straight games with over 30 points scored. 3 teams in Big Ten history have done that. I mean, there's so many historical things that the Big Ten, for them to wait 20 hours before Michigan plays their first-ranked matchup of the year, in a matchup that, frankly, is in some ways for Michigan and Penn State, is going, I think actually for the entire league, is going to decide who wins potentially the Big Ten and the Big Ten East. Now, if Ohio State were to beat Michigan, they still control their own destiny. But if Penn State beats Michigan tomorrow, which won't happen, of course, if Penn State beats Michigan tomorrow, then what's going to happen then is they have the tiebreaker over Michigan, Ohio State if Michigan beats Ohio State. So you lose a game to Penn State after all this is going on. You go and you beat Ohio State by 50 points in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter because as of now, Penn State, the tiebreakers between 3 teams at 11-1 going down. The last tiebreaker that's going to decide it is record of your Big Ten West opponents, and Purdue's have a 1-game better record right now than Michigan's or Ohio State, and I could pull those up, but I don't want to bore you guys with looking down at that. And the way it shakes out going forward is that their Penn State's opponents will be favored in more games, so that's kind of how things will go. How about Brett McMurphy? We know Brett McMurphy. Suspend Jim Harbaugh from coaching in games for the rest of the regular season. They found UM conducted impermissible in-person scouting for multiple years, resulting yada, yada, yada. Michigan's expected to seek a temporary restraining order, allowing him to coach Saturday at Penn State. Sources told McMurphy, and he works for the Action Network, formerly of ESPN. So I guess we'll see you in court, Big Ten. We will see you in court, Tony Petitti. And I think this will be a big black eye for the Big Ten commissioner that, hey, my first big ruling, really, frankly, after the day he was hired, this is the first time any sports fans, Big Ten fans or not, have even heard the guy's name, and his first ruling is going to go to court and be overturned within a matter of hours. At least that's how I feel based on what's been trending there all week long. How about this question I'm going to ask you guys? Will Jim Harbaugh coach every game this season, right? And let's just not just tout these 3 regular season games through the regular season all the way through College Football Playoff, Big Ten Championship, Houston or bust. Will Jim Harbaugh be the head man on the sidelines for every Michigan game this year? Comment below. Just give me a yes or a no. Jim Harbaugh's been feeling the love, though. We touched on this a little bit in yesterday's show. Thank you to everyone who watched that. Is that maybe it goes counterintuitive to like human nature or your psychology. Hey, this guy's being come at all of our conference partners, the other 13 Big Ten schools, soon to be 18 total next year. The commissioner, all the people in the Big Ten office, all the media all across the country, Stephen A. Smith, and what's the guy, the Alabama guy, Paul Feinbaum, and Paul, let me tell you something, Paul. The only really people who have defended Harbaugh, like Colin Cowherd, Desmond Howard, I think Joel Klatt kind of straddled the line a little bit. Everybody coming for Harbaugh's head. And then the NFL guys, Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport saying, hey, well, look, if Harbaugh's suspended and he tries to go to the NFL next year, the NFL teams might have to suspend him also because he was suspended in college. They're kind of citing the Jim Tressel and Terrell Pryor precedent from 12 years ago where they, Pryor spent his first 5 games. Tressel would have been subject to that as well. And everybody's coming down Harbaugh. But Harbaugh has got the vibes from the president, Santaono, visited Schembechler Hall a couple of times, from Ward Manuel, skipping the CFP top 25 rankings this week, going to bat for Harbaugh with a 10-page letter, really kind of putting it out there to everybody who would talk to him. Ward Manuel was that how much he supports Harbaugh and how much he will fight for Harbaugh. And coming down from the regions, right? 2 regions this week of the University of Michigan, right? The most important people, the people who elect the president of the school, who sign off on the budget, etc., tweeted out, hiring Santaono, and this was clearly in reference to Santaono defending Jim Harbaugh, was the best decision I've ever made in my professional career. And another that was Tone, what's his name? Ackerman, I can't remember his first name, but another regent quote tweeted him and saying, agree, blah, blah, blah. Santaono has been great. They were referring to how this president, just think about if Dr. Mark Schlichel, one of the most spineless creeps that have ever walked the halls of a Big Ten university, if he was still president of Michigan when this was happening, I think we all know the Michigan football team had probably been disbanded 2 or 3 weeks ago, the first time anything was even alleged that this happened. So I think Harbaugh's been feeling the love from all of those people, and now we're going to see what comes of it after this suspension, after potentially getting back into the good graces of the University of Michigan. Guys, if you haven't yet, we'll continue on the story. More news coming in. Let's get to 29,000 subscribers. We had like 80 new subscribers yesterday, so thank you to everyone who has helped us grow. Coming up on 29,000 subscribers, youtube.com/Michigan TV. It's daily videos, it's breaking news videos, live videos, and it's free. If you don't like, just unsub after the season's over. But support Michigan football, support the people who cover them every single day. Hit that sub button. Let's keep boosting those numbers up. All right, the Big Ten has made a statement. The Big Ten has had it coming in right now. I've got it in the wire here from the production team. As a penalty imposed on the institution, the university football team must compete without its head coach for the games remaining in the 2023 regular season, effective immediately. This disciplinary action should not preclude the university or its football team from having its football coach attend practices or other football team activities other than the game day activities to which it applies. For clarity, the head football coach shall not be present at the game venue on the dates of the games to which this disciplinary action applies. Does not, again, say anything about the Big Ten championship, which further, I think, emphasizes, at least to me, that that's an elective game. But you never know. When Michigan beats Penn State tomorrow, maybe they beat Ohio State, they could come out and say, okay, cool. Now we know the Big Ten East is going to come down to Michigan, Ohio State, no matter what happens against Maryland. That applies for that too. So maybe they're not going to clarify until Michigan has a chance where they got one game to play for it. So we'll see how that shakes out. Michigan, let's go if you want, if you have it up, the college football playoff top 10. Right? Wolverines dropped 2 weeks ago, AP poll number 2 the entire season. Ohio State jumps up because they're winning against Penn State, winning against Notre Dame. And they remain number 1, Ohio State did. Georgia 2. So once we get into this week, we're going to see a head-to-head. Michigan has fared better in the head-to-head matchups against Rutgers and Indiana. But tomorrow, right, Michigan State is playing Ohio State. Michigan beat them 49-0. How does that compare, right? Michigan was on the road for that game. Now it's Ohio State, Penn State. Michigan gets a chance at Penn State. Will they look more impressive than the Buckeyes did in a very low-scoring, ugly game? At number 3 in the polls, you have a chance, I think, with Michigan. A statement game tomorrow after all the pressure that's come down. Depending on what happens with Georgia, Ole Miss, right? Number 2 versus number 9. There's a chance Michigan could jump up to number 1 as early as Tuesday. I'm not saying that's likely, but a very convincing victory. I'm talking like 35-10 convincing victory over Penn State. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, especially if Georgia loses, which they probably won't, or struggles and pulls out a really ugly one against number 9 Ole Miss. Could be a lot of shakeups in the top 10 in the CFP, right? Utah is playing, Oregon's playing USC, Washington's playing Utah. So those 2 top teams in the Pac-12, they could even face losses. So this top 10 could really get shook up. You have at least 2 losses, but hell, you could have as many 3, 4, potentially even 5. So we'll see how that shakes out on Tuesday night, which we will be live for. Keep lighting up the comments, though. Fire Harbaugh. Did I say fire Harbaugh? Oh my gosh, production team, my ear. I think somebody messed up. They said fire in my ear. I think they were saying fire away in the comments. Free Harbaugh. All right, brutal slip up by me. Free Harbaugh. Anyway, it's not 2020 anymore. Anybody who says fire, I am banning you from the channel for life. And anyone who makes fun of me for actually saying fire, also getting banned for life. It's free Harbaugh. Fire up the comments with all of your Jim Harbaugh support. All right. We're going to let you guys know what comes of this. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter. It's just my first and last name, @James Yoder. Anything happens or if I hear anything, I will put it there. Also, you guys know the Instagram account. If I hear anything that's really juicy that I want to put on Twitter, at Michigan Football Report on Instagram. I'm guessing once we figure out what's happening with this temporary restraining order, you'll see me later tonight, probably an at-home video once that comes to fruition. And then after the game tomorrow, Michigan, Penn State, we'll see you guys. Till then, go Blue.